Hi guys, so today I'm working on a bunch of little tiny watercolors, and I did do another video similar to this where I did paintings in a little watercolor sketchbook, and I'll link that down below. But this time I wanted them to be on their own individual papers, that way I can just kind of shuffle through them when they're done and they're independent and I can hang them up and stick them wherever I want. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I especially love working in this size just because I can sit down and get a painting done in, well, I think it was just over an hour for each one of these. So it's just really pleasant to be able to sit down and get one full idea out and just enjoy the process and know that if something doesn't quite work out, it's okay because I'm not putting this huge time investment into it, or really that much investment as far as getting it perfectly right or perfectly sketched right. So it was really fun to work on it and work in it this way. It also gave me a lot of ideas for larger paintings that I might want to do, or different color schemes that I want to do for larger paintings. So all in all, it's just a really enjoyable experience. I don't know how many times I've said enjoyable, but I just really love this. It's really therapeutic almost and relaxing, or I can just sit down and paint this tiny little picture with no stress of it messing up or getting ruined or anything, because it doesn't matter if it does. I can just start a new one. And I'll mention really quickly what I use when I paint, since it's always the same for when I'm doing watercolor, but most of my paints are M-gram, so they look like this, if it'll focus. And I definitely prefer working in the tube. Like, I like having the control of using tube paint where I can pour it out and then let it dry and then paint from that, or I can use it when it's wet. I just like being able to put it exactly where I want it to, so I think that I'll always prefer this over pan paint. But anyways, like I said, most of my paints are M-gram, and I have a couple of these are Winsor & Newton Professional. But yeah, they're both really great. I highly recommend those brands so far. I've been really enjoying them. But the paper that I use is Arches, and I believe that the weight is 140. And it's cold press, which means that it's a little bit more textured than hot press, and I really like working on textured paper, especially since when I'm doing digital, obviously it's very smooth because you're just working on a tablet on a screen. So when I'm working traditionally, I like having that tactile feedback of working on actual textured product. So I really like that. I love that quality about watercolor paper, is how textured it is and how I can feel that through the brush. But yeah, so that's what I use on these little ones, but also all the other watercolors that I did do and probably will do because I'm really loving it. Anyways, now that I'm done talking about all of the materials, I'll talk about this picture really quick since it's actually just about to be done, and then I'll work on the next one. But this one did not turn out at all the way that I kind of wanted it to. I wanted it to have a desolate, grungy kind of post-apocalyptic look to it, but I didn't really have a very clear color concept behind it. So when I started painting it, it just ended up really muddy and grungy, and it really did not end up looking the way that I wanted it to. It was just kind of a mess. And I got to a point where I realized there was just no way that I was going to be able to pull it out and make it work the way I wanted it to. And I've been able to do that a lot of times where I've kind of messed up my painting and it wasn't looking exactly the way I want, and I was able to fix it, but there's just always that point where you know that there's too much pigment on it and it's too far away from where you need it to go. So I decided to put this one aside and stop working on it and stop trying to salvage it, just because I knew that it wasn't really ever going to be able to be what I wanted it to. So I'd rather take that time that I was focusing on this one and focus it on the next one, and then focus on drawing another one after that. So I think that that's one thing that's important to know, is at what point to kind of stop working on something if it's not going to work. And this one is a hard thing to say about that, because I do feel very strongly about working through the issues in your picture and finding a way to make it work and just giving it the attention that it needs to become a good painting. Because there are so many times where I've started on something and it just was not looking good, it wasn't working, and I might have given up on it, but because of things like deadlines or school requirements, I had to keep working on it, and eventually it did turn out really nice and it turned into something that I wanted. So there's a fine line between finding when you should give up on something and when you should work on things, and I did know that this one was kind of at the end of its potential, and I just needed to move on. So this one was definitely my favorite of the three, and I think it was probably because of the colors. And I know theoretically that watercolors, I think, work a little bit better when they're lighter because of just the way that the pigment works. When you go darker, it ends up becoming a little bit muddier and heavier. And I knew that, but I always prefer my pieces to be darker, so most of my watercolor pictures are darker. And this one was more of an experiment of, can I do that and can I enjoy doing something that's a lighter treatment to it? And I did. I really loved working on this one, and I liked thinking through the colors a little bit better, I think, and having a lighter hand as I was mixing them and as I was putting them down on the paper. So it was really fun. I think it was really inspiring for me to want to be a little bit more conscientious about what types of colors I'm using and how dark I'm making my watercolor pictures, and whether that's necessary for the mood or if I could create the same type of piece but with lighter colors and end up getting a crisper, clearer colors behind it. So yeah, I think this one was really helpful for me to see that I could enjoy making lighter watercolor pictures, and in the future I will focus on that and doing a little bit more light-handed color picking. And that is pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to hit subscribe so you can catch all my future art videos. And until then, I'll see you in my next one. Bye!